So this is Great Grandpa's old sugar shack that they had back in the day, and then all the old wood from the last time they would have boiled, that would be the last of the wood that they used. Not knowing that that would be the last time they'd ever fire the evaporator. And so there was two big swinging doors right at the front here. It's hard to tell where stuff is anymore because of the big maple tree that fell down on top of it. This is the old top of what's left of the cupola for all the steam to come out. And a big champion front door. I think it was 2.5 or 3 foot by 14 foot drop flue pan. And then we got the two tanks that were here. I rescued them out of the woods last year and pulled them out. The one was pretty dented from it had more impact from the tree, and but I stood in it, pulled it all out, and it was fine. So they'd come up with the team of horses right up to where the gators park now, and there was a friction fitting on the old collection tank, and then they just take the rope off it, and then they just put it down, and then it just let gravity put it all in the tank, and then this was above the evaporator, and so gravity all into the evaporator. But they still got a little bit of everything here.
Just raw sap, right? There was no concentrating back then at all.
Just raw sap. And this is one of the old tins. You can just kind of see the old logo that was on it. I think Dominion and Grimm, if you look in their catalogs, this is the same logo that's on their cans. But
they didn't do any bottling here. They took it all back to the farm.
it all went into the old style milk canisters, and that'd get loaded on the sleigh, and the horses would get parked in here. They'd stand in there, and they'd have their hay there. There was, you can just kind of see here, a little bit of remnants of a couch, and that's where you'd sit. Dad always said he remembers, because the arch was so big on this, you could lay underneath it and sleep, and he'd sleep underneath it with...
Because it's warm.
With the dog, yeah, with all the heat coming off it.
Yeah.
And so the two Belgian horses would be in here when all the sap was collected by pails. So everybody go out with their 5-gallon pail to each tree, and you get about 3 trees in. And
So how long ago was this?
Oh...
Like, when would it have started, and when would it have ended, roughly? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think the last time it got boiled back here was when Dad went to university, because Great Grandpa said once he was gone and all the other guys were gone, he really didn't have any help, because Grandpa was too busy with...
he's got the same problem everybody has today. Yeah. No help.
Yeah, it's hard to get help these days. So I think that would have been in the late 80s, early 90s would have been the last. I could be completely wrong.
When do you think he started doing it? 20 years earlier than that? Like 60s, 50s, 40s?
No. My grandpa was telling me he remembered his job when he was a little kid was the tins used to come just a stainless tin or a steel tin. And his job was to glue the labels onto the tin as a little kid. And he said he remembered it was a big deal the one day when the new labels came, they didn't have the label of whose it was a generic label, but they got a new stamp. And the stamp was Ernest and Son. And he was telling me about how much pride he felt when the stamp finally said Ernest and Son. It didn't say Dave, but it said Son, and back then that was a big thing. But so when Grandpa was a kid, and Grandpa died 2 years ago now, I guess, and he died at 79, so he must have been boiling syrup back here for
75 years ago.
Somewhere around that.
Yeah, wow.
Would have been around when he started.
Now, your great-grandfather, did his dad do it before him?
It wouldn't have been here.
Okay, gotcha.
Because his dad, Normand, owned a bunch of farms around, so I was never told which one Normand grew up on. I think it was across the road, from here, because the way it went for this tight little cluster was Arthur, Ernest, Roy. So Dad's at Ernest's place. I'm at Roy's place, and then Arthur's one son's living at Arthur's place. And I think some grandpa said that there used to be an original house there, and that's where they all grew up. I think there was about 8 or 9 boys, and then a few girls. But Dad said he remembers after they got done here, and everybody's tired and it's late. You get all those milk jugs thrown into the thrown onto the sleigh, and so your job was to hold on to be the kid. You had to hold on to the milk jugs, the big canisters, and you kind of had to balance it, and it had to go through a ditch. And the ditch, I think, back then probably would have been about that much, if not maybe a bit higher, because when you went through, if you wore rubber boots that were like those just standard black with the red soles,
Yeah.
probably only go down to about here on you. Most of the time, because it's a washout, so as the snow is melting, well, the water go to about here, so you only got about 4 inches of a soaker, and it was a big dip down and a big dip up, and you had to hold, because you didn't get that much, and it was a lot of boiling, so Lord knows that you had to make sure that you didn't lose one, or else you would have been getting a stern talking to when you got back up to get yelled at. And part of the problem was, when the horses come out of the woods, they could see the light on the barn, and they know once they got up to the barn, they were getting oats. So once they saw that light, they would basically start at a full sprint, just a full trot as fast as they can. Great Grep would just hold all of his weight back, trying to pull him to keep him going slow, and then they'd just go full speed through that dip, and then you'd be holding on, hoping that none of them fell, and then they'd go up and they'd go right into the barn. They said one time the yoke broke going through that gully, and it broke, and then the horse just went, and Great Grandma had to double check because the yoke broke, and then the horses were in the barn, and Great Grandpa and anybody that was helping them was nowhere to be found because they were still down here at the creek with all the syrup and the sleigh, and then the horses were all up in the barn waiting, going, "Where are my oats here now?" But
Well, thanks for sharing that, Chris. Appreciate that.
Oh.
It's something to learn. Definitely appreciate it.